So I'm up in the truck now. I'm going to talk about the truck a little bit. When I made that first video back in 2009, I was actually way off on the estimated mileage about the truck. After talking with Jim, the truck's probably got little over 2 million miles on it. Of course, things have been rebuilt over the years. But as far as the truck, the body, and stuff like that, it was always taken care of. I'm the third owner of the truck. Jim owned it up until the early 90s, 93, 94. He sold it to Don Lane. Don Lane used it for a truck that he would just relay loads over to Sheridan, Iowa with. He had a small trucking operation. The guys would come in off the West Coast to Omaha where they lived. Then he would repower their trailers over to Hy-Vee and Sheridan. He decided he was going to retire, and he didn't know what he was going to do with the truck, so he parked it. And then in like 2006, he moved out to Arizona, and the truck stayed here in Omaha. People kept asking where it was parked because they would go into the place where it was parked and ask if it was for sale. They'd ask what did you want it for. They wanted to know about the components. Nobody wanted a cab over then. Everything was, cab overs weren't hot then. So the guys just wanted it for the components. Well, Don didn't want to sell it and have it chopped up. It's too good of a truck to chop up. So in 2008, Don called me and told me what he wanted to do, and I ended up buying it. So he knew that I was going to do something with it to keep it the way it was. I wasn't going to chop it up. I wasn't going to tear it up and do anything silly with it. The place where it was parked was Janky Diesel Service here in Omaha. Old Eric Janky. He was an old school mechanic from way back in the old days. Eric was kind of leery of me because here I show up down there. Don had been telling anybody and everybody for a long time that the truck wasn't for sale. And then all of a sudden, here comes this young guy in there, and he's going to buy the truck. Eric thought that I was going to, chop it up or sell it for metal or do something silly with it. When he found out how much I cared about the truck and what my plans were with it, Eric came around and actually became a friend of mine, and he did some work on the truck. He'd say he could do little things, but he couldn't do big stuff because he was too old to bust big wrenches. But he was a good guy, and he helped me with a few things with the truck. So I've had the truck since 2008. I always try to keep it, pure, era correct. Some guys like to do the big visors and all that stuff. That's great. That's their truck. They can do whatever they want, but I never want to do anything to the truck that would have been any different than you would have seen back in 1980. I added the chrome air cleaner to it because when I was a kid, if you saw a cab over with chrome air cleaner on it, that was a big ride. That was a large car. That was pretty cool. In fact, if you saw a cab over, it was running around with a long wheelbase or anything, that was really something because the length laws back then. The reason that this truck was ordered with a 200-inch wheelbase is because Jim didn't go any further east than Omaha, Nebraska. He came back with produce to Greenberg Produce here in Omaha, and that was it. That's as far as east as he went. He didn't have to worry about going into Iowa. He didn't have to worry about shortening up to 55 foot or anything like that. He owned his own 42-foot reefer. He did his own thing. He hauled Hormel meat out of Fremont, Nebraska to Arizona, Phoenix area. Every now and then he told me that he would have a drop in Las Vegas. But when he got done in Arizona, he pretty much picked up the produce for Greenberg and came back home. He did a round a week. He ran team. He always had a driver with him till the end. And at the end, he had slowed down. Jim had been leased to Ringsby's reefer division since the 50s. So he had he did what he wanted. He hauled his own loads. He more or less just used them for the authority. So as he got older and he started slowing down, he only made 2 rounds a month instead of 4. So he didn't need a team driver. And then also Ringsby went out of business. So he leased the truck to Digby. Again, he only used their authority. He had his own loads coming out of Omaha, or I should say the broker was in Omaha. The load came out of Fremont, and then he came back to Greenberg. And he did that till he retired. And then the truck just sat. It just sat. He still took care of it, but it didn't do anything. And then he sold it to Don Lane in the mid-90s. And the funny thing about it is Don bought the truck from Jim, and Jim ended up driving it for him. Jim ended up being the guy who repowered the loads over to Sheridan with it. So the truck has always been taken care of, well taken care of, loved on. Jim was a non-smoker. Don didn't smoke. The drivers, there's no cigarette burns in it anywhere. There's no, when I got it, I gave it a good deep scrubbing clean, but there's, none of that film from cigarette smoke or anything. The truck was just always well taken care of. So it does have a 200-inch wheelbase. It's an aluminum frame. It's still going strong. It's got another kind of weird feature that a lot of people may not know, but it's got a 13 direct in it. It's not a 13 over. It's a 13 direct with 370 rears. And the reason that Jim ordered it with a direct is because the speed limit was 55 miles an hour then. And also, Jim was never no big speed demon, he told me. He said that he drove steady, and he said if he was going down the road at 60 mile an hour, he was moving. The truck will go faster, but it's just, kind of revving high. But that's okay. It's that's the way these engines were back in the day. So I've thought about switching it out for a 13 over. I do have one available, but I haven't done it yet. It is kind of weird shifting this 13 direct. It shifts just like a 13 over, but backwards. If you're in high gear, you're in direct. You're not in over. So when you start to pull a grade, you're gonna split your top, and you'll be a half a gear down, but you'll be in, we'll call it 8 low. So that's how it works. Some guys say they never seen one or heard of one, but they were fairly common back in the 55 mile an hour days. And also it's direct drive, so they say that's where you get kind of your best fuel mileage. And Jim was a real savvy business guy. He was savvy. He was a business guy. When he bought this truck, I have the receipt for it, and I have all the paperwork for it. This truck cost $60,500 in 1980. He paid cash for it. He started with Ringsby in the 50s. During the 60s, he had 2 trucks and 2 trailers leased there. In the 70s, he still had 2 trucks and 2 trailers leased there. One of them got wrecked. The driver got hurt really bad. So he just, from then on, always had 1 truck and 1 trailer. And he was just a guy that believed in having more money in the bank than you got, toys. And he kept himself always in good standing with everything, and he was able to pay cash for trucks, pay cash for trailers. He was just a real savvy guy, and he's a great fellow. He's still around. He still lives in Omaha. I don't see him as much as I should or as much as I used to, but anyway, that's just the way things go. Don Lane, the second owner of the truck, he's passed away, but he was another real savvy guy. So what's interesting about this truck is it's never had a payment made on it. It's always whoever's bought it is paid cash for it. So I think that's kind of interesting. But anyway, I just thought I'd give some information about the truck, and hope you guys enjoyed it, and catch you later.